Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. Your home for fleet solutions, aiming to inform, pioneer, and entertain the tire world in connected industries. Sponsored by East Bay Tire, keeping essential industries moving forward.
Good day and welcome back to Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. I am your host, Joseph. I am joined by my co-host, Big John, and guest, Mark Aville, affectionately known as Mine Man Mark. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Are you ready to kick the tires today?
Absolutely.
Let's get to kicking.
Great. So, Mark, you have a long history in mining, and we can't wait to hear about that. But you come on the show today as Strategic Account Manager, Earthmover Mining for East Bay Tire. What does that really entail?
Well, first and foremost, it's an honor to have that position, and it's a responsibility to make sure that all of our teammates go home every day safely and that we bring the lowest cost of operating to our customers.
And I appreciate that you come to that with safety being first and lowest operating cost being second. We don't talk enough about safety in the industry, and it's certainly one for another podcast that I just want to focus on. Lowest cost per, say that again?
Lowest operating cost could be lowest cost per hour, lowest cost per tire, lowest cost per piece of equipment. But at the end of the day, we're here to drive the cost of doing business down.
Great. So you're doing that today. Give us a little history of how you got here. Where did you start in the industry, and what's that story?
Well, this February I'll be celebrating 40 years of industry business, 40 years in the industry. Started out washing white walls back in the day. And my dad worked for Goodyear. I grew up in the business and kind of went through the retail side of it, the commercial side of it, large fleet retreading, and then finally made it into OTR and mining.
So you've covered just about everything.
I have literally sold everything from a wheelbarrow tire to 992 tires.
And I'm assuming that's taken you all over the U.S. What are some places you've been?
Well, I have literally touched mines, copper mines in northern Michigan, sand quarries in South Florida, coal mines from West Virginia to the Powder River Valley, gold mines in Alaska to quarries and like situations in Hawaii.
Freaking cool, man.
It's awesome.
It's been a great career.
So you've got this expertise. You get a call from a plant manager. I'm assuming that would be the role that someone would contact you in, yeah?
Typically, yes.
So they call Mine Man Mark, and they say, hey, I need some help. What does that process look like? Where do you start? Walk us through that.
Well, first and foremost, I like to completely eliminate any forethought reasoning of what we think should be the right tire. And I like to look at, go and look at the plant, look at what it's doing, look at the hazards, see what the machines are doing, and start right from the basics. I want to look at the loaders and see if they're extended. I want to see if the haul trucks have raised sides on them, extended sides on them. What speeds are they running? What territory are they running? What hazards are they that we're going to run into that's going to lower their tire usage?
So a lot of terms there I haven't even heard before. What are raised sides?
Much like a truck that you see in a farm, or they'll build the sides up so they can carry an extra 4, 5, 6 yards.
Interesting.
Or they'll take the tailgate off, or they'll put a tailgate on so they can. They'll change the configuration of the bucket. They'll take a 5-yard bucket, turn it into a 7-yard bucket. They'll harden the buckets.
Now, I see that a lot in ag, but I really never occurred to me to see that in mining. That's got to affect tire wear.
Absolutely. It sure does.
Huh. Okay. So type of equipment that you work with, I mean, is it all across the board? Is it mostly a certain type of equipment, certain type of quarries, mine sites? I mean, what's a regular day look like for you?
It's a little bit of everything. We do everything from a haul truck in a garbage fleet in a landfill to a haul truck, maybe a rigid haul truck on a quarry. Giant loaders to your smallest loaders. We do everything in between, but predominantly, I work with the larger OTR stuff.
The larger and OTR off the road.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So big iron, big egos tend to go with big tires. I've certainly seen a lot of people humbled when they come to a mine site for the first time, the second time, or even the 12th time. It can be overwhelming, right? Safety becomes an immediate factor as soon as you step on and go, wow, if I really don't know where equipment's going and they can't see me, this is a dangerous place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you focus on safety as the tire guy? It's pretty rare that I ever hear somebody talking about safety and tires together. It's all about, hey, I want to put on a big tire. How do you incorporate that in your day-to-day?
Well, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of injuries over the years, and there's no tire program that I can build for you that can outrun a safety issue. If I build a program and it's cutting your cost and we have a safety-related issue and somebody gets hurt, your profit's gone. Everything that I worked for, everything that I did to lower your cost of doing business just went out the window. So safety has got to be first and foremost.
That's an impactful way of saying it, I tell you what. All right, so the plant manager's called. You started to assess those applications. Is the type of material moved going to be a factor?
Absolutely, yes. It goes into, whether it's dry or wet, whether it's going uphill or downhill, whether it's sand or granite rock. All the material weighs a different amount, the length of the run that it's doing. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
And it feels to me today, and you guys certainly have far more experience than I do, that there's more tire options than there's ever been. When I started in industry, there was a few tires that were great for loaders, a few that were great for rigid dumps. It seems like there's endless amounts of options today.
Absolutely. I would say that, we've tripled or quadrupled the options for the typical piece of equipment.
Jeez.
It's almost mind-boggling.
Is it overwhelming for plant managers out there? Do you find yourself being more of an asset from an expertise standpoint, or is it something that the availability of information out there has allowed plant managers to have more at their fingertips to make more decisions themselves?
Well, one of the challenges that's been out there for years is tracking. How do you get the data of what the tire's actually doing to the plant manager? And so we've implemented some different data tracking things across the East Bay field. We can go into that plant manager and say, with a like-minded piece of equipment in a like-minded application, this is what we've seen from brand A, brand B, brand C, and kind of give them a data point to make a decision, make an educated decision.
And you guys are using software and technology to do this today?
Yes, every single day.
Wow.
We have an entire team that's all they do.
All they do is collect data?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, we certainly need that team on this show in the near future. Let's add that to our list.
Okay.
So a plant manager has brought you in. You've assessed the applications. You've assessed the equipment. You've brought in the data team at this point to start tracking. Is that right?
Well, we certainly can do it that way. I like to do a site severity study first.
Okay.
I want to get some actual data of time, temperature, and tension that these vehicles are running under. And then that starts to build my plan. That starts to build my program.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an interview question, something that I've asked in the past. I ask people, all right, let's say that we're sitting down having beers, and after a couple beers, I finally ask the real question. How much do you think you can improve a mining fleet's operation percentage-wise? Let's say that you're just saying they have some challenges, they haven't had an evaluation. Ballpark, how much are you going to be able to improve on that budget?
My goal the first year is 10%. My goal the second year is 20%.
Wow, that's pretty significant.
That's freaking huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's very easy to do.
So why do you think it's not happening today? I mean, if that's so easy to do, I mean, you've got 40 years in the industry, you have that skill set, but 10, 20%, I can tell you in basically any business that I operate, if someone could say, hey, 10, 20%, I'd be picking up the phone and saying, come on in.
Yeah, where do we sign?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that I go after first and foremost is the basics, and it's very simple. You know, you can promote a 5 or 10% savings just by making sure you have valve caps on. The most basic $5 valve cap can save you thousands and thousands of dollars. And then we get into the data part of it, where we look at the financial responsibility. Do we section a tire that's had an injury when it's only got 20% of its life, knowing full well that an OTR section in the average tire is, $1,000, maybe $2,000?
mm-hmm.
At what point do you pull that tire and decide that it's scrap? And that's kind of what we specialize in, having the data to make an educated decision.
So scrap and scrap analysis, we've talked about this on other pods, where you're going through tires that have been damaged, are no longer useful, or worn out. Is that a part of your role?
Yes. We go into a pile of tires that obviously are out of service, and we look at whether they've got thermal dissolution.
Slow down. What's thermal dissolution?
So like a heat separation. Okay. Maybe you've got a L5 tire that's been on a haul truck, for example, and it just got too hot.
Right.
So it'll start to have a thermal breakdown.
Okay.
And so we look for signs of that. We look for discoloration. We look at sidewall cuts, abrasions, bead issues, whether the tire just ran too long, too hot, at too low of an air pressure.
Now, in terms of separation, I'm digging a little into the weeds on this. You say a thermal separation is caused by heat. I think a lot of people feel like a separation is always a tire failure. It should have survived. It should have performed.
Where's my warranty?
What?
Where's my warranty?
Exactly.
How many times have we heard that?
Absolutely. So can a separation be caused by low air pressure, by heat, by factors that are controllable?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on a project right now on a 745 articulated dump. All 4 tires have heat dissolution.
Okay.
The beads are cracked severely. The tire is performing as it should be. It's at the right air pressure, but it's also got a 6-mile run with excessive heat buildup.
All 4 tires?
All 4 rear tires,
All
yes.
4 rear tires. So if I'm the plant manager, I'm pissed.
Yes.
How's that conversation going?
Well, it starts with giving them the data that this tire at 30 mile an hour can't haul that amount of weight. We need to take either the top gear out of it. We've got to take a little bit of weight off it.
And does this articulated dump have the higher sides that you were talking about?
No.
No. Just a stock OE.
Yep.
So you're going to now present options for a different type of tire that will perform better with that equipment and in that application?
Yes.
How many options do you think you have for that? I mean, that's that haul type, and that's really where I want to take this next is what are those different type of applications? But it's a longer run, you're saying, and so that creates more heat?
Yes.
And so as far as heat buildup, how many other tire options do you have to advise them with?
Well, we can go to a lower tread depth.
Okay.
That will dissipate some heat better. Couple options. You can lower the tread depth. You can slow the machine down,
Right.
or you could take a little bit of weight out of it.
Sure.
And then we can always adjust air pressure accordingly.
So lower tread depth. I think this is a key conversation for most of our viewers, especially procurement managers, fleet managers. Having more tread depth isn't always better.
No, it's actually can be detrimental if it's not the right application.
The example I'm going to share is I had a customer years ago that bought a brand new loader, a 988, and the equipment dealer, and this is for equipment dealers out there also who have a lot of influence on what tires come OE. They shipped it with L5s, which are the deepest tread. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So that got to the quarry, and they were running a longer haul, and the tires failed in basically a couple months. Customer was absolutely pissed, right? Just assume as your articulated dump customer. And they really should have had a shallower tread on there. How do you think we address those in industries? Is it this, trying to get this information out to fleets, or is there something that we're missing?
Well, definitely training. Most of your good operators today are starting to limit the amount of tramming that they're doing on their loaders. They're starting to pay attention to the time, temperature, and tension idea behind the tires. They know that the tire can't run at that excessive speed at that lower air pressure. So a lot of it's just training and getting the right tire in the right spot.
So you're going to have to help me with some terms. What's tramming?
Tramming is basically moving a loader from one spot to the other. Hypothetically, you would be moving it from one job site to another. Maybe you're piling at one part of the quarry, and you need to move it to the other part of the quarry. One situation was about 1.5 miles, 2 miles to the face of the quarry, and the operator was driving it up to his lunch bucket.
Yeah.
They're yellow, but they're not a cab.
Nice.
Wow. And so you can just easily ruin a tire very quickly. And we're talking, hundreds of feet, thousands of feet to ruin a tire, not miles and miles and miles. We're talking very short distances.
So I've heard this in some industries, namely waste or super regional trucking fleets that are concerned that, hey, I want to buy cheaper tires because I'm going to damage them, or in rental fleets. But in a heavy equipment application, how much influence do operators have?
So that's substantial, especially when you get into haul road conditions. When you get into an operator that when he's doing face work or working on the face of the load, he'll what they call sweep the floor. So when he goes in and he takes his first load out, his first bucket out, he'll come back in, he'll sweep up the rocks before he goes into his next load, so he's not running over them.
Okay.
You take a rock the size of your fist, it'll go through an $80,000 tire very quickly.
A rock the size of your fist?
Yes. Yep. We see it all the time. We see rock strikes that'll ruin $40,000, $50,000 tires all day long.
So I'm assuming that's not being discussed in MSHA. Where is it being discussed? I mean, do you do operator training?
We don't. We try not to tell them how to run their mines. That's not what we do. What we do is emphasize the idea that if you ran your blade once or twice a day, or you did a rock spillage call in, that we could cut your tire related cost.
Okay.
And we kind of give them the idea of this is what we would do, and we let them approach it with their operators.
So that's a great line, and this is something I'm really trying to promote in the industry. Is it really isn't our job to tell operators how to run their business, right? We're there as a consultant. We're there as somebody to help run their business. What are some of the hardest applications that you have seen out there? Circumstances, maybe they have to run that long haul, right? Maybe it has to be uphill for whatever reason outside of what we know. What are some of the hardest applications out there for tires?
Well, definitely wet material adds substantial weight. And the length of the hauls, especially here in California, where we're seeing a lot of this dike work and the work on the levees. You're talking multiple miles of run at hauling excessive weight for an excessive amount of time.
Tell me about wet conditions. You mentioned that you're saying rain, wet is going to influence the wear on a tire?
Well, definitely. Obviously, if the product is wet, it weighs more.
Okay.
And then the other condition is when a tire gets wet, it becomes a lot more susceptible to cuts.
Really?
Yes.
Are there different types of rock that will cut a tire more or less?
Yes, obviously, the granites and the sharp-edged rocks will do that. And anything that's under the mud,
right,
that the tire gets spun on.
Sure.
That's where we see a lot of damage.
Why is it more acceptable, Mark?
Tread compounding. I think it acts as a lubricant to basically let that rock slice it.
You brought up compounding, and as we talk about haul runs, is there tire compounds that work better for longer hauls than shorter hauls?
Yeah, yep. We have heat compounds, we have cut compounds, we have ultra cut compounds, and matching the right compound to the right tire to the right job to the right piece of equipment is all part of our plan.
I haven't heard ultra cut compound before. There's a additional compound out there that's even more cut resistant than your standard cut resistant?
Yes. Yep. Most manufacturers offer a cut compound and an ultra cut.
So that's new to me. That brings up my next question is 40 years in the industry, what are the biggest changes you've seen in mining and Earthmover tires and subsequently mining and Earthmover in general?
Well, first and foremost is torque, horsepower and torque. The equipment has grown substantially in size. It's grown substantially in horsepower, and it's definitely growing in torque. So the mounting process, the dismounting process, the lubricants that we use to do that, the air pressures that are needed to do the same job that it used to do 20 years ago or 30 years ago has changed. It's went up substantially.
It's interesting you say horsepower and torque, and the reason I say that is because when you hear people talk about how equipment's changed, they mostly say weight and size, not necessarily horsepower and torque, but that makes a lot of sense to me. That's going to have a huge impact on tire wear. How often do we see low air pressure over torque and adjustments right above that bead?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's a big player in the market today.
Is torque having any effect on the wear conditions of wheels?
Well, yeah, we've seen a substantial amount of, especially in the wheel loader situations. 992s are kind of known for breaking the wheels, especially the front wheels. Yeah, we're definitely seeing wheel issues, especially around that 10,000 hour mark.
Okay. So you've seen equipment get bigger. Tire industry wide has compounds changed over the last 20 years, 30 years? I mean, what have you seen in tires that have changed and made an impact on mining and Earthmover today?
Well, definitely the compounding has come into play. We've got more cut resistant compounds than ever. They're more able to dissipate the heat on the longer runs. It's changed substantially. We went to radial tires versus the old bias ply.
Yeah.
And obviously the heat buildup is substantially less in the radial tire.
Okay. All right. Blast from the past, since we're on tires, your favorite beads. What's a tire that you remember that's no longer produced that was a favorite of yours?
Probably the old Michelin XZA, one of the original.
Wow. Going way back.
Yeah. That's out of the archives there. That was one of the first truck tires that really changed the world.
Yeah.
Sold against it for years. I was not a Michelin dealer at that time, and man, it was a tough tire to sell against.
Yeah.
I knew at some point I'd feel young again.
There you go. All right. And your big dog energy, your BDE, this is a question we ask all of our guests. We don't always wake up saying, hey, we want to be in the tire industry. We find passion in it. We find a love for the people in it and the customers. What was a moment in time for you that you went, this is what I really want to do?
Well, I think when I really started to follow history and the relationships of the infrastructure, the relationships that built the infrastructure of the United States. When you go back to, Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone and Thomas Edison going up around the thumb of Michigan and camping out, whether it be Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir, going to Yosemite and building that relationship to start the national park programs. I just saw those relationships as being substantial and helping to build the infrastructure of America, and I wanted to be part of that.
I love that answer. Yeah. I mean, it's very humbling because you look at yourself as a part of history, as helping that piece of equipment move that rock to create something that's part of America.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're getting towards the end of our time today, Mark. Do you have any last words for the equipment operators out there, the plant managers, or maybe the equipment dealers out there who are working with heavy equipment on their tires?
Well, certainly I would offer the opportunity to reach out to East Bay Tire or myself and see if we can collect some data for you, or if we can share some of the data that we've already collected to help you make the right choice.
There you go. Bring a tire expert in.
We'll do our best.
All right.
Can't wait.
All right, gentlemen, that's all for today. Let's air this one up.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. Your home for fleet solutions, aiming to inform, pioneer, and entertain the tire world and connected industries. Sponsored by East Bay Tire, keeping essential industries moving forward.